Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be posting my podcast with teacher Ken from Get English Tips. So you can find him on Instagram and on his website at Get English Tips. Now, Ken and I had an amazing discussion. Mostly it was just me asking him questions. So I wanted to know all about Scotland. I think you hear a lot about England and the UK, and I think you don't hear enough about Scotland. And there might be some confusion. Like, is it part of the UK? Do they speak English in Scotland? Some of you might be wondering. So we're going to cover all of the kind of common questions you might have today. It's such an interesting episode. I really think you'll learn a lot from this one. So in this episode, you can expect to learn, is Scotland a country? Does Scotland have a language? And if so, what is it like? You can learn about the Scottish culture, the Scottish mindset, the food that's very popular in Scotland, a little bit about the history as well, and the attitude towards the English. Is it good? Is it bad? And we'll finish off with some tips if you want to travel to Scotland about where you should go and what might be good to see. So there's so much in this episode. I really think you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching, and without further ado, here is Teacher Ken. Hello, English learners, and I'm joined today by Ken, Teacher Ken. So thank you very much for joining me for the second time on the podcast.
Absolutely, Michael. It's been a long time. What was it, about a year and a half maybe ago, was it? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah. It was like one of the very first interview episodes I did where we spoke together. So it's been a long time, but I'm glad you could join me again.
Yeah. I think the last time I spoke to you was in Asia, and I'm back in Scotland now. You know, went touring the world. You know, back to my homeland.
How do you feel about that? Do you get maybe homesick's not the right word, but Asia sick, or are you happy to be home now?
You know something, when I used to live in Spain. I lived in Spain for about 6 years, and then when I moved to Thailand, moved to Asia, I got really homesick for Spain. You know. But yeah, it's weird because I think it's because of the situation and what's going on just now. We're under lockdown. It's we're restricted anyway. So I think if you think too much about being homesick or Asia sick, you'll just go a little bit crazy, you know. So kind of just accept this lockdown that's going on, and we can't move for another 2 months. I think it is, you know.
Yeah. I think that's healthy. It's best not to fight it in your head, is it?
Exactly. If you end up fighting it, I think you go a bit crazy, I think, you know.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned to you before, but I'll mention to the listeners now, the topic of this episode is all looking at Scotland, which, if I'm not mistaken, is your homeland. So yes. I've got a few areas we can get to today. Maybe could you start, I think you probably told us last episode, but for those who don't know, could you start by telling us where specifically you're from in Scotland? And maybe also you could say what you do at the moment as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm from Scotland, and if you don't know where Scotland is, I guess it's the north part of the UK. And I'm in a city called Dundee, which is the fourth biggest city in Scotland. I've actually came back here about a year and a half. I've been away for about 20 years working, teaching English and working in Europe and in Asia. So I came back to Dundee, my homeland, with my parents in October, I think it was 2019. So Dundee's really in the east side of Scotland. We would say the northeast, but I guess it's kind of like the Middle East, if you like, of Scotland, right on the coast. We have a beautiful beaches here, you know, but the sea leads up to the North Pole in the Arctic. So the water is absolutely freezing, you know. But it's a beautiful part of the world, you know.
Excellent. I'm not so good with my geography up this far, but Dundee would be north of Edinburgh, is that right?
That's right, yeah. Edinburgh's about 80 kilometers south of Dundee. From Dundee to Edinburgh, you have to cross the River Tay, which is one of the big rivers in Scotland, and then you have to cross the River Forth to get to. So there's two kind of water junctions in between the main cities here.
Okay. So the big question that I'm interested in hearing, and also most people might be as well, is Scotland a country?
Scotland's one of the oldest countries in the world. We at the, I mean, we had our own country, and even now it's our own country. But I think in the year 1707 we had an act of union with England at the time, and formed the United Kingdom. At the moment, there's a lot of political debate at the moment whether Scotland should kind of break away from the United Kingdom and go back to its own country, if you like, you know. So, but we don't have a king or a queen. I know in England, like the queen is sovereign, she rules, but in Scotland, the people are sovereign, so the people rule. And this is why we don't have a king or a queen at the moment, apparently so. So yes, it's our own country. We have our own laws separate to England. We have our own currency, the Bank of Scotland, etc. We have our own language. We've got 3 languages in Scotland. We have our own capital city. We had our own stock exchange until 1974. We have our own oil. We have our own natural resources. Yeah, so we're our own country, separate country.
Yeah, own culture as well, right? Own history.
We haven't, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're just like a normal country, except politically, we're kind of ruled by London.
Yeah. I mean, that word rule is a good one, maybe. Obviously, but there's I don't know much about it, if I'm honest, but there's a tricky history as far as I know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, to simplify it for people, because I think it's quite a hard concept, like, you know, England and Britain and Scotland, all these things. Would you say it's like Scotland and England are different countries, but they're all kind of in some kind of partnership under the United Kingdom?
That's right. I mean, there's three countries in Britain. We've got Scotland, England, and Wales. There's 4 countries in the United Kingdom. Then we include Northern Ireland. But in the Act of Union basically meant that all the finances, etc., went through London, and London controls all the budgets and all the finances for Scotland now. That's essentially what it is. You know, I think about if you mention a normal country has about 100% ruling, I think Scotland has only 25% of its own ruling. The rest is ruled by London.
Yeah, I find it very confusing, but
if you imagine the old Russia, the old USSR, you know, you had Russia and you had Ukraine and all of this. This is a bit like I guess it's a bit similar to the UK. You've got multiple countries under one banner.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So what about your identity then? This is always interesting to me. Like, would you first identify as Scottish or British? And another kind of bonus question is, how would you feel if someone called you English?
You know, I'm always Scottish. You know, I've never classed myself as British. Although on the forms, etc., you have to put down that you're British. You know, I've lived abroad so much that people call me English. It doesn't matter to me. You know, it's just a name. You know, but certainly, if I had a choice, I would be Scottish, I think.
Okay, so do you never have Scottish on like government documents or forms or anything like that?
No, because our passports are actually United Kingdom passports. So all the legal documentation has to say kind of from the UK. It's just like you guys, you don't have English anywhere on your official documentation, I don't think.
Well,
it'll always be United Kingdom, I guess.
I don't know much about it, but there's been a movement. You know, I'm from Cornwall, which is like another Celtic nation, or it used to be.
Yes, indeed.
And there's like a movement in the last couple of decades to identify as Cornish. So, you know, maybe not on like these really important national documents, but some documents, they'll have an option to put Cornish rather than British.
Right.
Wow. I think it's kind of, you know, picking hairs or splitting hairs, right? It's like, it doesn't really matter, but Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have that. Maybe in the future.
Well, hopefully in the future. I think we're going to have another vote in the next year or so to decide whether we're going to remain part of the UK.
Ah, and
I
you don't
think.
have to answer. Yeah,
Go on, sorry.
I was gonna say you don't have to answer this, but what would you think would be best? Like, would you think it would be better to be independent or on the fence?
I think for me, I think it comes down to whatever my country wants to do. If we want to stay part of the UK, then that's what we'll do, you know.
Hmm.
For me personally, if I had to vote, then I would vote to kind of run Scotland ourselves. I think, you know. I think we've got. I think we've got. You know, Scotland has a rich history. You know, where, for example, we invented things like the television, the telephone, the pneumatic tire, stamps for envelopes, you know, penicillin. We've got a rich history of inventing things, you know. And some of the big pioneers like Carnegie, who went to the US, etc. And they're all from Scotland, you know. And in New Zealand, for example, it's a lot of old Scottish names in New Zealand. We're very much kind of a country that's kind of went outwards, you know.
Hmm.
So
I
for
didn't know
me
that.
personally, I think we're very much could be self-sufficient, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, it might be interesting. Yeah. That's good to know. It's good to know. And earlier you also mentioned the languages. You said there were three languages. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got three languages in Scotland. You know, I was going to say Scotland is it's got, although we've been part of Europe for the last 40 years, I sometimes feel Scotland has more in common with like Scandinavian countries,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like Norway. And certainly in the north of Scotland, there's a lot of kind of connections with Norway, up Hellier in the Shetland Islands, and etc. So, and our language actually there's a lot of Nordic kind of vocabulary within the Scottish language as well. You know, like instead of saying house, we would say hus, which is like the which is like the Norwegian word for house, or the German word for house. You know.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, we've got three languages. We've got the official language, which is English, which is taught everywhere. Um, we've got like making a comeback. There's only about 60,000 people, maybe 70,000 people that speak the Scottish Gaelic, which is was the first language of Scotland. And nowadays they're actually making all the road signs into dual kind of language,
Hmm.
the English and Gaelic, you know. And we have also the Scots language, which is the third language, which is similar to English, but it's a kind of old-fashioned kind of Scottish language, you know.
Okay, well that's news to me as well. I was aware that there's like a couple up there, but I didn't really know the difference. So Scots is a bit more similar to English. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if I said I'm going home, if I said it in Scots, we'd say I'm awa home. So it's kind of similar, you know.
Oh,
We've
that's
got
so
similar
cool.
words. You know, we've got Robert Burns, our kind of a poet from like the 1700s, who's still kind of celebrated in Scotland, and he wrote all his poems in the old Scots language, you know, which a lot of people still like. Auld Lang Syne, perfect is a Scot. That song you sing at New Year is actually a Scottish song, you know,
Ah.
in the old
Oh, very
Scots
cool.
language.
I'll see if I can find the lyrics and then maybe link it in the show notes if people want to see that. Yeah, that's really cool. So, do you know any Scots or Gaelic or anything?
Well, I mean, the Scots language. I mean, where I come from in Dundee, yeah, if I listen to my grandmother, you know, her vocabulary and her accent and it was all really old Scots, you know. Um, but because I've travelled so much, my language has kind of become a bit flatter, if you like,
Hmm.
you know. But yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm things like I'm away home, I'm going home, come in the house, bend the house, kind of things. We would say that in everyday language, you know, um, when we're speaking to each other, you know. Instead of saying my, we'd say me, this kind of
Hmm.
thing, you know.
Oh, that's so cool. It's so interesting. I think a lot of people may not know that there really are so many languages on the British Isles, right? It's not just English. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I think
that
you
comes as a
you have
surprise.
your language. You have your language down in Cornwall, right?
Yeah. I said to you just before we started recording today that I'm learning Cornish now,
Uh-huh.
and it's well, for the most part, it's completely different from English. It's like no similarity. It sounds more kind of almost like Germanic or like
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
old.
Uh-huh.
Um, and my goal is to maybe learn a bit and maybe hopefully do like an episode on this in the future where I can share a
Uh-huh.
bit more. Maybe even I can find someone who speaks fluent Cornish to interview them. That would be like a
Wow.
good goal of mine in the future.
That
But
would be a fantastic goal, right?
yeah. I've got a lot of good ideas, but it's kind of nice to kind of connect to your, I don't know, your roots a bit or your ancestors or whatever you call it. It's nice to kind of
Yeah.
unlock that part of the culture.
Maybe this Cornish language is similar to the Scots Gaelic because that's very kind of Germanic. It's it's not Germanic. It comes from Ireland, and I know like the Manx in Isle of Man, they have their own language which is similar to the
Yeah.
Gaelic. The Welsh is a bit. I think that might be an offspring to the Gaelic as well. And so you guys in Cornwall,
Hmm.
it might be an offspring as well. But there's so many different kind of dialects in the UK anyway, isn't there?
Yeah. And what's fascinating is it's all linked to history, like the invasions and the different people. It's really interesting, I find. But
Yeah. I actually found out that the Scots Gaelic is actually spoken in Canada. It's actually, I
oh,
didn't know this, in Nova Scotia,
oh,
in New
cool.
Scotland. Yeah, I didn't know this.
That just clicked for me when you said it. Yeah. So presumably some people traveled over there a few centuries ago, maybe, and
Yeah.
yeah. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Um. So just maybe we should have said this earlier, but just to clarify, I think I know the answer, but I know some people may
What
still
then?
be confused. What is your first language?
My first language is English. That's what we learn from that's what we get taught when we're born. That's what we learn at school. That's the official language everywhere is English. English is the official language.
Yeah. I just wanted to clear it up because I'm maybe you get this and messages and stuff, but I'm sure some people might, on the one hand, think Scottish and English are the same. There's no difference. On the other hand, people might think different language, different country, completely different. But
Mm.
it's maybe more in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think for the Scottish, if you imagine Scotland, Scotland has the same land mass as England. I didn't know this, but it has the same land mass as England, but it only has about 10% of the population. You know,
Hmm.
and halfway down Scotland, it divides the north and the south of Scotland. We have a series of mountains called the Trossachs, and north of that is kind of like regarded as where kind of Gaelic and everything comes from, on the northwest side of Scotland, and everywhere else is kind of English. But we have kind of dialects, if you like, up the east coast. If I travelled about 70 kilometres from my house, they would move into what's called the Doric kind of dialect, which even though it's basically English, it's still difficult to understand. They would greet you, and instead of saying "How are you," they would say "Fit like." Try to
Oh,
understand that.
okay. Is that even is that so? That's a completely different word.
I think it means "What are you like?" or "How are you?" Fit
Oh,
like, fit like. So it's
that's
so
so
that's
interesting.
kind of up the Aberdeen area way.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, a lot of people as well. I asked on Instagram
All right,
what people want to know about. A lot of people wanted to know a bit about travel too. We can come to that more in a minute.
huh.
But do you think if anyone is traveling to Scotland that they would need to learn any of the dialect or local slang or anything?
No, no. In Scotland, what I've found is because I've been putting out a lot of videos on my Instagram this year, and I've talked a lot about accents, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, the Scottish accent," and they're actually focusing on the accent from Glasgow, saying that it's very, very difficult to understand. And Glaswegians on the west coast of Scotland, when they're speaking, it's almost I think they have a beautiful accent.
Hmm.
It's almost like they sing when they speak. Their accent is very fluctuating, very up and down. Hey, where you going in that? So it's beautiful accent. It's when you've been away for so long and you come back and you hear it, I think it's gorgeous accent. But then you've got like the Edinburgh accent, and it's just very, very kind of very flat and very easy to understand, and you know. So yeah, in Scotland, it's pretty similar to England, I guess, where if you travel anywhere, the accent kind of changes, but the language is pretty much still the same.
Hmm. Yeah.
You'll
Yes.
have the odd words that are the old slang words and everything, you know. Like they don't say child in Scotland, they'll say bairn or Wayne,
Mm,
you know, this kind of thing, you know. But generally the words are all exactly the same.
yeah. Is it true that you say lad and lass a lot up there as well?
You know, so when I was younger growing up at school and stuff, I remember a lad was your boyfriend and a lass was your girlfriend, you
Oh,
know.
okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, she's my lass. That's my girlfriend, you know.
Mm. I just thought it was
Forgot.
like boy and girl, like that little lass over there, like that girl over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very old to use it like that.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll use it as a kind of term of endearment. You know, oh, he's such a good lad, you know, or a bonny lass, you know. So it's a kind of like term of endearment if we use it, but it's not used in everyday language
Aye.
these days, I don't think.
That's kind of like the stereotypical words I think of when I think of like Scottish accent, you know.
I was just thinking that there, you know.
Why then? Why has presumably at one time English was not the main language in Scotland? So do you have any idea why it has become dominant? Like why have the other languages shrunk?
You want to, well, it's actually quite political, you know,
Hmm.
because we had in just after, I think it was about the 1700s, we had what we call clans in Scotland, which is like tribes, I guess. If you see the word Mac, it's a Scottish name, and it means from the family. So, for example, MacDonald's is from the family of Donald, you know. So there was lots of like tribes all over Scotland, and money talks, and there was a lot of genocide, which means a lot of people were killed. And it's called the Highland clearances, where a lot of the wealthy landowners kind of, it's horrible history. The wealthy landowners got paid from London to actually get rid of all the people that were living on the land, and they would burn the houses down and kill them all, and they would make them emigrate to Canada and to America and everything. So that kind of took the language with it, and that's why the English language kind of became more dominant.
Hmm. So it's
Not a
linked
nice
to
history, really, you know.
no. I mean, a lot of things to do with England in the past are not very nice, are they? Like England, was very, not so nice in the past. Let's put it that way. But
I think
so,
all history. I always remember this. History is always written by the victorious,
mhm,
and you know, and the last couple of hundred years, we've progressed quite a lot in technology and travel, etc. So the British had a great kind of navy, a sailing kind of country, because we're an island. So we kind of went traveling all over the world and kind of colonized a lot of the world,
hmm,
you know, it's just the way it happened. I'm sure other countries done the same thing, it's just
yeah,
unfortunate history. Unfortunately, or fortunately now we don't have anything to do with all that kind of thing. There's nothing we can do what our ancestors did hundreds of years ago.
yeah,
It's a shame.
exactly. Yeah. So that does bring us up to today.
Uh-huh.
So some people also wanted to know about the relationship between our countries now. So how would you say, like, the average Scot thinks of the English, like, or maybe like the politics, or like, is the relationship good, or
What do you
is it
think, Michael?
tense?
What do you think?
Um, I mean, from my point of view, it seems fine. But then, if I consider myself to be English, then it it feels like I'm from the traditional bully country, So I really don't
The
feel like I have
traditional
the.
bully country.
Well, yeah, we were like invading places, we were bullying people, so
Really? Wow.
you don't think so?
Well, yeah. It's quite sad that you feel like England's a kind of bully country. You're from there.
I think there's a lot. I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but I think there's a big problem with like a lack of identity in England.
Yeah.
No one, for example, I don't know if you feel the same way, but if I see someone with the English flag, the white and red flag
Yeah.
outside their window, you don't really think, oh, a good patriot. You kind of think, oh, maybe they're a bit racist.
Really?
Um, I think that's a common idea down here.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's a shame, but I think a lot of it is linked to the history. Like a lot of people feel like there's nothing to be proud of.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's why a lot of people do cling on to local identity. Like, I'm
Yeah,
Cornish, or
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
from, this area, or Yorkshire or something.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
But I don't know.
I think it's really, there's two things in society I feel, and I mean, because what's happening in the UK at the moment, politically, it's kind of a hot topic at the moment. But there's kind of two things I feel. There's the people that rule the country, and there's everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel at the moment the people that rule the country are bad people, you know, and I think a lot that takes a lot of, certainly from Scotland. I mean, people say, "Oh, the Scottish hate the English," and there's not. There's an intense rivalry there in sports and everything.
Mm.
I remember during when I was young, Scotland would play England at football, and it was such a big event. You know, we would all be around the television set watching this, and getting really patriotic. And when in my grandfather's time, there would be like 20 trains going from Scotland down to England to watch the football. It was an amazing time. But then there was a lot of things happened, like when something bad happened, they would refer to it as Scotland, but when something good happened, they would refer to it as Great Britain. And a lot of Scottish people started thinking, well, this isn't right. So, I mean, at the moment, a lot of kind of venom, if you like, or a lot of animosity, which means a lot of kind of bad feeling goes towards the government of the UK rather than the people of England as such. Um, I don't. People are people wherever you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
You've traveled all around the world, and I've traveled, and people are people. People want two things in life: they want to have food, and they want to smile. They want to get along with other people. But the rulers of the country deem this not so.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great distinction to make. Is governments and society, or people, is a big difference. I feel that way. I feel quite strongly like about China as well. Like
Huh?
a lot of Westerners have problems with like Chinese government and things like that.
Yeah,
And I'm all quite. I feel quite passionate about making the distinction again that
yeah,
I've never met a Chinese person that wasn't really kind and really nice. And it's
exactly.
maybe the government. You can say what you want about them, but don't blame the people, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember I went to China a few times, and I remember I spent a few months there. Sorry, can you hear that taxi coming past?
No, no, I can't. Got a good microphone.
Can you hear that? I went to China, and my mum came to visit with my uncle and my auntie, and wherever we went, the Chinese people were stopping us and taking our photographs and everything, and they were very, very lovely, lovely people. And I lived in the north of China, next to North Korea. We were
Mm,
right on the Yalu River, and I felt I was the only kind of white person, Western person there. And walking along the street, people would stop and speak to me, and try and speak English to me. And I just felt like a bit of a, I don't know, like a superstar. It was the first time I had
yeah.
experienced it before. So people are generally very, very nice. I would walk down the street, and business owners would invite me into their tea shop, have some tea. I'd sit there for an hour, half an hour, drinking tea with them. I think people are generally, what I've found is people are generally nice all over the world.
Yeah, yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that we all have in common, right? We all want to be well. We all want to be happy. We all want to be healthy, and that we all have that in common, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I think to summarize, there's generally not a big problem in our relationship.
No, I
That's
don't.
my
I don't.
experience too.
I don't think so at all, mate. I think. I mean, I've travelled for about 20 years, and I've kind of, when you travel for a good period of time, you kind of you find your little pockets of people,
Hmm.
and the British will kind of always kind of stick together. The Germans will stick together. The Japanese will stick together. So generally, with the Scottish and English, we'll always kind of stick together, if you like. And maybe within that little faction, we might split up, but
Yeah.
generally we'll all kind of go in together. There's not really Scotland and England are, they're, we have we're the best of enemies, if you like. We've got a lot of respect and we get along very, very well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always the same with neighbors, isn't it? Whether they're neighbors in your house or country, I think you usually get on. There's just some problems time to time. I think it's like England and France, right? It's like you said, there's this healthy rivalry. It's like we're going to beat them in the football, but then we travel back and forth and we get on fine. So
I think as well that I saw a television advert. I don't know if you saw this. Was about rugby, and you've got people from Scotland going England. You've got people from Wales going England. You've got people from Ireland going England, and then it's actually who do you want to beat in the rugby, and everyone's going, we want to beat England. I think it's because in England are saying maybe Scotland, maybe Wales, we don't know. I think because England's a kind of dominant partner, if you like, in the United Kingdom, everyone's focused onto them.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe why it is. They get a lot of bad press, but
yeah. So how about the culture then? This is a very broad question, but I wanted to ask you about the mindset. So do you think there is like a Scottish mindset? Do you think the way of thinking is different?
I think we're very, very resilient people. Resilient means when if we fail, we'll always try and we'll always kind of keep going. We never. I think maybe because it's very, very cold here. First time I spent a winter here was this winter, and it went down to -15.
Wow.
Freezing,
I've never felt that before.
Oh my God, I just didn't want to get out of bed. And and I think we're very, very kind of resilient because we're also a very poor nation as well financially, that we're always kind of very resourceful. So I think we have a very kind of dark sense of humor, if you like. It's not slapstick, but it's very, though people will kind of make fun of you, but to kind of make you harder, if you know what I mean. That's what I've noticed since I've came back. There's very much they'll kind of slag you, or they'll make fun of you, but in a nice way, just to kind of make you harder. They don't like people who are very, very soft. I think they're very hard culture.
So you have to be a kind of thick-skinned, maybe to deal with all these, what do you say, friendly banter, right?
Friendly banter, that's the word. Yeah, I think you have to be very, very thick-skinned. I think in Scotland, I've noticed it coming back to my family. You've got to be really thick-skinned. I think generally, but maybe it's because I've been away so long. Everyone is very, very polite. When you travel the world, people are very nice to you. They're very polite. But when you come back to your own folk, we say, when you come back to your own folk, it's kind of like, okay, now you're back. Let's make fun of you, and then this is where you have to grow strong again. Is that the same in England? Is it, or is it kind of more polite?
I'm not like super well traveled within England, but what I know, I don't know if it was just my upbringing or if it is my culture, but down in Cornwall, I was always taught to be very polite and not get in people's way, apologize all the time. And I always had quite thin skin. I was quite sensitive to people shouting at me, for example, or giving me a hard time. And since moving to London last year, I've noticed I've really changed. I've kind of become a little bit more resilient as well, because I think I don't know if it's just the nature of a big city or if it is something about London, but I feel people here are a lot less patient. People will just shout at you, hey, get out the street. Or
really,
if I want to ask someone for directions, they might just say like get lost. So I've kind of had to deal with not taking it to heart, not being so sensitive. So
yeah.
It might, I don't know. It might be even one level higher in Scotland. I don't know.
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed as well, I don't know if you have this in London, is when I lived in Thailand, I lived next door to my neighbor for 4 years, and every morning I would say, good morning, Sawari Kap, and she would just look right through me as if I wasn't there, But every morning I would still say it just to see if she would say hello to me, But I've noticed here in Scotland, you're walking down the street and people say, hello, good morning, and it felt a bit weird at first again that everyone was saying hello to you again, you know.
Mm.
I walk around the local park down there just doing my exercise and good morning, good morning. It's really, they're very, very friendly, you know, the culture, you know.
That's nice. Yeah, I feel like that's a feature of a lot of the like, far reaches of the country. So if you do go to Cornwall or Wales or Scotland, these far away from London, I guess, I
Yeah.
think people generally are more friendly. They'll say hi to you when you're on a walk.
Yeah. Is that
Um,
right? Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing I don't like about London. Even though I'm not in the centre here, I can
Hmm.
go for a walk and a lot of people will just ignore me, and it feels a bit cold. It's not so nice.
So you can be kind of anonymous.
That's the plus side, especially if you've got something to hide, But yeah. Um, Another topic is food. So lots of
Uh-huh.
people want
All
to know
right.
about the food.
Uh-huh.
What would you say is traditional food there? And I don't know if any of it you still eat today, because I know there's a lot of traditional foods we have in Cornwall that we don't eat anymore because it's
Uh-huh.
gross. But
Uh-huh. You know something? I went to Peru about 4 years ago now, and when I was in Peru, I became a vegetarian,
hmm,
and I lost immediately. I lost about 25 kilos, right, easily. You know, it just
wow,
when I stopped eating meat and stopped dairy products, the weight just came off me. And then I came back to Scotland last year, and my weight just ballooned up again. I don't know what it is here. You know, I don't know. We have a lot of bread. We seem to eat bread. Or must be the same in England, but we seem to eat bread all the time.
mhm.
Bread and potatoes. You know, we have. There's a thing. What is it? Was it kale? It is. In the old days, to keep warm in the winter, they would kill their animals. You know, and they would drain the blood, and then they would put the blood in a kind of box, and the blood would go hard, and then they would slice it up, and then they would eat it. You know. But I don't think they do that
Not
anymore.
anymore, maybe.
Kale, I think it was called. You know, we have
Okay.
we have which I love. We have like haggis, which is lots of barley, which is crops, etc. But in the old days, I would eat it, and it was all kind of sheep bits of sheep and everything put together. But it was very very spicy, and it was really really I really liked it. You know, nowadays we have vegetarian haggis, but
Mm.
we also seem to fry everything in Scotland as well. I've noticed. I don't know if that's UK wide as well. You
I've
know,
heard of this in Scotland, especially. Like, isn't the fried Mars bar? Isn't that a Scottish thing?
everyone talks about it. I've never actually had one. You know, we have well, obviously in the UK we have fish and chip shops, which are just like pots of oil, boiling oil, and you throw in potatoes and you fry potatoes and you fry fish and you fry chicken and everything, you know, fish and chip shops. And in Scotland, we used to deep fry pizzas.
What? It's like, how much more unhealthy can we make this?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's go one step further. Let's throw in chocolate as well and deep fry the chocolate as well, you know?
So at some point you've got to stop, right? Like you're taking it too far.
I know, I know. The diet is when I came back, I noticed that we make a lot of soups here because in the winter it's very very cold. We make what's called broth, which is really thick soups
Hmm.
and stews, etc., just to kind of keep our energy and keep warm in the winter. My grandmother used to say it's so thick it will stick to your ribs as it's going down, you know. But yeah, we eat a lot of soups and well, nowadays our fast food is going to the chip shop, you know, fish and chips.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, generally a lot of soups, a lot of stews, potatoes with everything. I think there's like maybe 101 recipes with potatoes, you know, that we have, you know.
Ah.
Um, but yeah, the haggis. I've started eating porridge, which is very, very healthy. You eat porridge down in England?
Yeah, every morning. Yeah, I do anyway.
Do you really? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
fantastic.
so
I
like,
forgot.
like oatmeal, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So we have some of that with some almond milk and some water, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But we used to put salt in it as well, which is crazy, you know.
Yeah, I've heard some people doing it. I haven't tried it, but
Yeah, I
hmm.
put some sugar in mine. But
Do
yeah,
you-
there's a lot of. I find that Scottish healthy. We used to have the worst health in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had the lowest kind of or the highest mortality rate, which is the highest death rate in the UK.
Mm,
I think the average person would die, before they were, maybe before they were 70,
mm.
because that came down to the poverty that we had in Scotland. It's actually gone up now, which is thankful, but because the healthy diet, the diet wasn't healthy at all. It was all fried stuff, and you know,
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so if you want to try some kind of Scottish food, if anyone's listening want to travel there, then try a little bit, but maybe not fried stuff every day. That could
like
be.
the word stodgy,
Yeah, yeah.
stodgy.
Stodgy is like thick and lumpy. Is it kind of like that?
Thick and lumpy, yeah, that's how I would describe Scottish food. Thick and lumpy.
But to me, it kind of feels like it's, yeah, as you said, it's cold up there. It's kind of stuff to get you through the winter, stuff to kind of lift your spirits, especially in it's
Exactly.
darker up there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I couldn't believe it this winter. I would look out my window and it was like 9:30 in the morning. The sun hasn't come up, and
Yeah.
then I'd look at my phone and say, "Okay, it's going to be -5 today," and the sun's going down at 3 o'clock. What? But it actually really affects your moods. I forgot I hadn't lived in Scotland for so long, and I realised it actually dampens your moods.
Mm,
Because there's not a lot of sun. I pity the people in Norway, in Tromso in Norway. They have 24-hour darkness during the winter.
yeah.
The
I,
sun
I
never
don't know how they could
rises.
deal with that. It must be terrible. I mean, even down here in the south, like this winter, it's tough. I mean, it doesn't set as early as 3 o'clock, but maybe before 4 o'clock, quarter to four.
Yeah,
Um, it's really depressing, especially if you're working and you're not
yeah,
seeing any daylight because you're
yeah.
inside all days. Yeah,
I
it
think it
can have
came.
affect
I
you.
think it came from the old days when certainly the UK was very much agriculture, and they wanted the light in the morning during the winter so they
Mhm.
could feed all the animals, and that's why and then they changed they put the spring forward, fall back. They put the clocks back, at 1 hour in the winter, so
Yeah.
they have more light in the morning. I remember going to school in the mornings. Do you remember? And you'd go to school in the morning, it was dark, and you'd finish school in the afternoon and it was dark.
So miserable, so miserable.
Yeah.
Like walking to school, freezing cold, everything's dark, and it just like,
Oh,
did I get the time right? Like, is it really time for school?
but in the plus side, during the summer, I
Mm,
remember it was like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and it's still light during the peak of summer here.
that's a very good point, actually. I think a lot of the more equatorial countries, in the center of the world, like in the
Yeah,
middle, they it's very consistent. I imagine, right? Like they have pretty similar length days all the time, I think.
that's right.
And
Mhm.
we, yeah, on the plus side here, it helps you appreciate the summer more. Like if you have a horrible winter, the summer is that much more exciting, which is why I think even if it's just like 18 degrees Celsius, everyone down here is taking their shirts off, going to the beach, and other countries just think it's insane. Like, why are people so excited about 18 degrees?
Exactly. If it gets 18 degrees, it's on the news here in Scotland.
Yeah.
It's a national holiday. 18 degrees, get the summer. But yeah, I remember in Thailand, the sun would come up at 6 a.m. and it would go down at 6 p.m. and that was it. No change all the year round.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was always kind of like the same times. But I love the summer, as you say, the summers here are fantastic.
Mm.
The long hot summer they call it because the brightness all day from early morning to late night. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So with that said, then maybe we can move on to a final topic today.
Uh-huh.
For travel, if
Uh-huh.
people want to come to Scotland, would you recommend visiting in the summer or any other time?
You know what? One thing I've missed. I feel a bit of a tourist again in Scotland because I've been away so long, and I'm looking at places like Edinburgh. It is gorgeous. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Hmm.
I'm looking at. I follow all the Edinburgh Instagram accounts, and I'm looking at the pictures. They're absolutely gorgeous.
I really want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I before COVID, I got my tent together and I was going to go camping during last summer, you know. So I want to go to all the beautiful places up north, you know, like the Harry Potter Viaduct and everything up there, it's Isle of Skye and everything. So really, Scotland is open. It's beautiful to come whenever. Just don't come. I guess the worst time is really in the autumn, when just before winter, when it rains all the time and the cloud is low. But during spring, it's beautiful. You know, everything. One thing I've noticed in Scotland, you can probably see from out here, the kind of green outside, because it rains a lot. So during the winter, everything becomes brown. And then in springtime, everything starts to become green again. The colors start coming. It's beautiful, you know, really,
Mm.
really beautiful. It's like in Thailand, I felt it was kind of green and then very dark, burnt, you know. But here it's kind of like always changing the scenery, you know. They say in Scotland, if you don't know the weather forecast, hang about for 10 minutes because it's going to change, you know. Because you know, the weather are always changing. It's beautiful colours all the time. I would
Yeah.
recommend coming all the time, I guess, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I've only been to Scotland once. I've been to Wales a few times, which probably you wouldn't say is similar, but in my mind it feels similar.
Does it? Why?
Um,
Why do you say that?
I guess it's because I went to the mountains in both places. So
Yeah.
the mountains throughout the British Isles, I feel like that you kind of know you're in the UK because it feels like these kind of mountains, and partly because of the weather as well. Like the weather's really changeable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, maybe because of the mountains again, but
Hmm, hmm.
um, I guess would you say it's probably a good idea to embrace that aspect of the weather? You know, not hope for the sun, but enjoy any kind.
Well, you're not going to come for the suntan, you know. But it's funny, you know, growing up in Scotland, you know, if you're stuck with anything to say to anyone, if you meet a stranger, you know, in the post office or something, and if you're stuck, you don't know what to say to someone, just talk about the weather. Because everyone talks about the weather, you know. Oh, it's a beautiful. Oh, it's terrible today. Oh, it's beautiful. You know, it's a
Yeah.
big conversation starter because it changes all the time. You know, it's not
That's
like
a great tip. Yeah.
in Thailand. It's like, oh, it's very hot today. That's it.
It's
Where
like, well,
here
yeah, of
it's like,
course, it's always hot.
yeah, exactly. You know, but here it's like the wet the weather changes daily. You know, or every half day it'll change. So everyone talks about the weather quite a lot. You know.
Hmm.
It's quite a, if you're not used to the different kind of fluctuating weather, it's really interesting to see, you know.
Yeah, that's a really good tip actually. And maybe we could do one final question, which is,
Yes.
yeah, as you said, you're kind of a bit like a tourist now that you've come back. So I don't
Yes.
know how much you have traveled within Scotland,
Uh-huh.
but I do get messages. People want to visit there. I think people hear about the castles and the scenery.
Oh, yes.
Um, do you have any advice of where they should go? Like, where would you recommend them visiting?
You know something? I love Edinburgh. I grew up kind of, well, I got a job in Edinburgh and I lived in Edinburgh for about more than 10 years. And what I found, Edinburgh's like, Edinburgh has two cities. It's got an old town and a new town. And apparently during the plague in the 1500s, you've got Edinburgh Castle and then you've got like the palace at the bottom. And from the castle to the palace, it's called the Royal Mile, you know, and it's very, very famous. And during the plague, they actually where people were dying, they actually concreted over a city underneath the city. So you can actually go underneath Edinburgh and you'll find
Oh,
another city. You know, they
that's
do
so
tours.
cool.
It's so cool, you know, and you go in and you see like vaults and you see shops, you know, and everything. You know, it's really, really interesting, you know. So they all the poor people kind of were underneath the city, and that's where they lived and died. But they have
Wow.
tours about it now, you know. They have ghost hunters as well. So if you're interested in that, you can go under and they have ghost hunters speaking to all the spirits and everything. But it's really, really. I love Edinburgh. Edinburgh is the most beautiful. I've traveled a lot. I've been to about 50 countries in the world, Michael, and Edinburgh is the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Really? Wow, that's a huge recommendation then. Yeah. I mean, I went to go there even more now. I didn't know there was like an underground part as well. That sounds so exciting.
Yeah, it's
Um,
called the Ghost Tours. It's
wow.
called, you know. There was a guy actually in the old because I bought my first apartment in Edinburgh, and it was built in the year 1860 or something. You know, it's very, very old. In the centre of Edinburgh, there was a couple of students, and they were knocking on their wall, and they thought, this wall, there's nothing behind it. So what they did is they got a hammer and they knocked through the wall, and there was actually a staircase behind the wall that went right underneath the city, you know. And this is how they found all this underground city. Nobody knew about it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Really, really interesting, you know.
That's really incredible. Wow, I need to learn more about that.
And of course, Edinburgh has the festival every year in August, where it's one of the biggest festivals in the world for a month as well, you know. So I love Edinburgh.
Okay, excellent. Well, I will definitely be going there.
Sorry?
And Dundee, yeah.
And Dundee.
I'll definitely be visiting, and maybe I'll see some of the listeners there as well after the pandemic.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Give us a shout when you come up. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Got my own personal tour guide now, right?
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so I've learned so much today, and I'm sure the listeners have as well. Do you want to, if people want to know more about you, where do you want to send them?
All right. Oh, okay. Well, I have my Instagram channel, Get English Tips. And I'm actually, when I was in Thailand, I was training university graduates to be flight attendants with airlines around the world. So I've actually just started this. I was speaking to you earlier. I've actually put together some courses that are, you know, helping people pass interviews, etc. And I've noticed that a lot of people they lack confidence with their English, you know. So hopefully these courses will help them. So come to my Instagram channel, Get English Tips, and from there you can visit my website, ajarnken.com, and it's got all my courses up there. So if you're interested, I'd love to see you on my Instagram channel.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much. I've learned so much, and I really enjoyed talking with you, and hope to see you again.
Michael, it's been a pleasure. I've loved it. Nice to see you again. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.